This is Health Unfiltered, the podcast where we cut through the bullshit and get honest about fitness, nutrition, and mental wellness.
Quick shout out to today's sponsor, Irritable Bowel Syndrome Relief 7 Key Strategies to Conquer IBS by Joshua D. Noland. Are you newly diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, a longtime sufferer seeking new solutions, or dealing with other digestive issues? This book is your comprehensive guide to naturally healing from IBS and preventing future flare-ups. Josh overcame IBS by following the tips and strategies in this book, and so can you. This book takes a holistic approach to health, providing you with the tools to understand and manage your symptoms so you can start enjoying life again. By applying the knowledge you will gain in this book, you can reduce IBS symptoms, experience fewer flare-ups, and improve your quality of life. Take control of your IBS and start your journey to a healthier, happier life today. Go to ibs-book.com and snag your copy today. That's ibs-book.com. Now, back to the show.
Alina, welcome. What's good in the world today?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm good. Everything's good. I'm in sunny Los Angeles, beautiful weather. So things are good. Things are bright.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm about an hour north until it's a little overcast here, but it's still a beautiful day out. So I'm
Nice.
really, really happy you're here. I saw your presentation on the Fat Burn Challenge on Monday, and I really loved it.
Thank
So I'm
you.
really, really happy you're here with us today to share more. So in this episode, we'll discuss how having an unhealthy gut microbiome can lead to skin issues, gastrointestinal disorders, and autoimmune dysfunction, and what you can do to fix it. But
Yeah,
before we
all
get
the good
into
stuff.
it, I'd really like to learn more about you, like where you grew up and what you like to do for fun.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Los Angeles, so I was born and raised here. I can't imagine living anywhere else. LA has its faults, sure, but it's just home to me. It's just what I'm used to. So I can't imagine living anywhere else. I have two kids, a husband, and I love living here. For fun, what do I do for fun? Just I like hanging out with good people. I've realized it doesn't really matter where you are. It's about people's energy. And when you have people with good energy, you can be anywhere. You can be in your living room, you can be in your backyard, you can be sitting in your car for hours, right? I don't know if you've ever done that, but you're saying bye to a friend and you're just there for an hour, just catching up. You can be anywhere. So I just like being around good people. And I've realized as I've gotten older, I'm a lot more selective about how I guard my energy and who I allow into my own space. It wasn't like that when I was younger. I was more of a people
Mm,
pleaser. I've realized that no, I have value too, and I have to be selective in who I allow into my space. So now I'm very guarded with that energy and yeah, I like playing tennis. Been playing,
fun.
all through since I was a kid, and I forced my
Hmm.
boys to play. They didn't like it, so I let them do their own thing.
Very cool. Yeah, I did tennis camp one summer and it was pretty
Nice.
fun, but I never really got into it. My
Yeah,
my
okay.
younger brother really likes it. He does it in high school and he loves it. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
It's so important to stay active.
Yeah. It's
It's
a
nice
great
when you
release
enjoy.
too.
What was
I
that?
think it's a great way to release kind of the stressors and things also.
Yeah.
Anytime I go for a private lesson, my coach is like, Alina, you're so angry today. I'm like, I'm not angry, but I'm here to release my stress. I'm not just here for fun,
Hmm.
It's a healthy outlet for just kind of the stressors of the day. So it's a great way. Exercise is always a great way, whether you're going on a run or a hike or playing tennis or basketball, whatever it is, such a great way to kind of release some of that pent up stress.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I really enjoy hiking, getting out in nature, and then
Yeah.
my workouts is where I release my stress, doing my strength training and mobility, a little bit of yoga. It's really
Awesome.
helpful to have a calm mind and get rid of that stress.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, gut health is so important. I wrote a book on it about irritable bowel syndrome, and I just saw so many people struggling with it in my life, friends and family. And
Yeah.
I just realized that people needed to learn more about it. And so I'm glad to have you on today to talk more about that in detail. How did you get involved with gut health?
It really wasn't. I kind of fell down that rabbit hole without realizing that it was something that had plagued me my entire life and something that I had been dealing with. I always had eczema as far as I can remember. I always had skin rashes, and I was told different things. Change your detergent. It might be that, it might be the shampoos you're using. I was provided steroid topical creams, and I was told it wasn't really a big deal. It was kind of a skin issue, just kind of your skin being getting irritated by something. I struggled with constipation most of my life. I always went between either having constipation or having loose bowel movements, but it was never this regular, consistent bowel movement. I never knew what that was like. Just like you mentioned, IBS, I was told you have IBS. It's not a big deal. A lot of people have it. It's very common. And especially when you're younger, when you're a teenager, you don't really question the doctor. You don't really question, well, why
Mm,
do so many people have irritable bowel syndrome? This doesn't make any sense. You just kind of say, okay, well, the doctor said it's not that big of a deal. And I didn't really make the correlation back to my mom, who was, she was 46 when she passed away from stomach cancer. And so I never really made that correlation of my gut issues with what happened with her. Again, I was much younger. It wasn't until my second son had severe constipation as a baby and toddler, and we would
oh wow.
struggle so much with him just producing bowel movements. We were trying to do everything we could, and the pediatrician said to just give him Miralax. And he said, it's not a big deal. There are a lot of kids who are constipated today. It's pretty common in kids. Given Miralax, a lot of parents give it to their babies and toddlers just to get them to produce a bowel movement. It's really not a big deal. But it was a big deal for me. I thought, why would I give my baby Miralax? This doesn't make any sense. There has to be something I'm giving him that's contributing to his constipation. And I remember asking my pediatrician, could it be something I'm consuming because I was breastfeeding? And he told me, no,
Yeah.
there is no correlation between what you're consuming through your breast milk to your baby that is contributing to his reaction. And that didn't sound right. I
Mm,
thought,
that doesn't
I'm
add
not a
up.
doctor, but this is just, doesn't really make sense. I'm directly feeding him off of what I'm consuming. How could there be no relation? So we went to a pediatric GI. Same thing, they said he has no issues. Everything is working properly. They tested his urine, they tested blood, and they said, just give him the Miralax. Why are you so against this? And I said, because he's a baby. I don't want to give him Miralax. I want to figure out why he's getting constipated so I don't do that anymore. We don't feed that to him anymore, or whatever it is that's contributing to that. There's a reason why his bowels are not able to eliminate properly. Giving him Miralax is not the solution. It's not
Hmm.
fixing the problem. And I felt really pressured. I mean, if I know parents have struggled with this, they've reached out to me, and it's a really lonely place to be there when you have your pediatrician saying, why are you pushing this? Just give him Miralax. It's not a big deal. You're having the pediatric GI push this and say, you're really making this into a big issue. It doesn't have side effects. It's not a big deal. They sell it at CVS. Just give it to him. It'll relieve him, kind of making me feel bad. You're continuing to put him in pain. Just relieve him and give him the Miralax. And it just was not addressing why this was happening. And I feel like we tend to run into this problem often, even as adults. You have an issue, they say, just take this medication, just take this Band-Aid, just take this antibiotic, just take this whatever it is. Let's mask the symptoms. And then lo and behold, the symptoms almost always come back. So I wasn't getting the answers. And I said, what certification can I get where I can test my own kids? Because I want to know that I can test them and I can see the results, and I can test them how often I want, as much as I want, and I can get those results and figure out from there what those results show me. That is how I became a nutritionist, and that is why I got certified. It was really because of my son. as I went down the rabbit hole of trying to fix his symptoms, that's when I came across the correlation or the research and the studies on opportunistic bacteria like H. pylori, the imbalances in the gut microbiome. And when they're left untreated, they can lead to things like stomach cancer, like colon cancer, like gastrointestinal cancers. And the light bulb started going off of, oh my God, that's what must have happened with my mom. I never made that correlation
Yeah.
until kind of this full circle moment of going through trying to figure out what was going on with my son. And then it led me all the way back to my childhood. So it was really, once that clicked, I realized this is what I'm meant to do in life. I'm meant to spread awareness about this because just like I was in the dark and you were saying you were in the dark, your friends and family were in the dark, people don't even know about IBS or they think it's just normal. That's exactly where I was too. And it just seemed like it's not a big deal. Just take this laxative, just take that, whatever it is. But there's a reason why we're seeing an increase in colon cancer today. There's a reason why we have people who are getting diagnosed younger and younger with stomach cancers. And it's just, we have to spread awareness and understand what's going on in our body. We have to understand how these bacteria play a role in our overall immune system and our overall health. We can't wait until someone gets that stage 4 diagnosis, which unfortunately is far too common. And so that was really my journey into gut health.
Yeah, that's an amazing journey.
Yeah.
When I started writing my book, I didn't even realize that I had suffered with IBS when I was younger before I changed my diet. I just thought it was normal. You go and eat
Yeah.
fast food and then you have to go to the bathroom afterwards. And I didn't, put it together until I started writing the book, like I said, and it's really incredible. And then you go to the doctor and you're trying to get help and they're not addressing the root causes. They're just trying to, mask the symptoms, and it's
Yeah.
really a shame. A lot of the doctors, the training is, written by like the pharmaceutical companies to try to sell more drugs and more, prescriptions. It's really a shame. And, really
Yeah.
when you address those root causes, like you're saying, you can fix the problem for good. What did you ever discover exactly what was going on that was causing your son to have these issues?
Yeah, I mean, he just had an imbalance of good bacteria, and that bad bacteria was overtaking his system. And this is
Hmm.
what we commonly see. I'm sure you saw this in your own results as well. When you see those, anyone that I work with, I always have them take a GI map stool test because I want to
Hmm.
see exactly what's going on in their gut microbiome. And almost always they have an imbalance of good bacteria and bad bacteria. They have the bad guys taking over. They have the good guys that are being suppressed because they're just overpowered by this bad bacteria. They don't know that's what's going on. No one has run a GI map stool test on them. In fact, my husband was going to get his annual checkup 2 weeks ago, and I said, have your doctor run a GI map stool test. And his doctor said, we don't do that. I said, what do you mean you don't do that? We're paying all this money out of pocket for insurance. This is your general doctor. Can she refer you to someone who does that? And the doctor said, no, there's no need to do that. So we have all these symptoms that we see that we think are benign, the eczema, the psoriasis, the food sensitivities, the fatigue, right? People are so tired all the time. We've almost romanticized being tired. We've all almost made it poetic. Like it's just so funny, after a certain age, you're just tired all the time. You're just, you need a coffee after a coffee, and it's not. There's a hormonal imbalance that's going on that's contributing to you being so tired all the time.
Yeah. So did you change your diet to help your son with his issues? Is that what you ended up doing or
Yeah, well, I changed my diet.
yeah.
And that was also overwhelming and frustrating because I felt like I was trying every diet that I could before I really understood how to heal my own gut. I was trying the vegan diet. I did raw vegan for a little bit, actually, which was miserable because I was eating like raw zucchini and just cucumbers and carrots all the time. But I thought, if this is what's going to heal my gut, I will do it because I want to figure out a solution, right? You reach a point where you're so frustrated that you will eat anything to heal yourself, right? You will try to find the answer till the ends of the earth.
Mm,
I think this is why people are experiencing so much with like microdosing and other things that we're hearing so much more about is because they're trying to find a solution that's to something they're struggling with so much. So I did that. I did juicing. I juiced for 33 days. That did not relieve any of my symptoms. It did not relieve any of his symptoms. It's not something I would recommend to people, but it's something I was trying to do. I did carnivore. I did dirty keto back then. I didn't know really about clean keto, but I did dirty
mm,
keto and I was counting macros. And so I was trying to do every single thing I can, but it was just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. I realize that the underlying issue is not me trying this crazy restrictive diet. The underlying issue is me healing my own gut. And that's how it is for everyone. If you're struggling with something, if you have constipation, if you have diarrhea, if you have excessive heartburn, if you have these feelings, if you're bloated all the time, there's an imbalance in the gut microbiome. And until you address that, you can do whatever raw, vegan, carnivore, keto, whatever diet you think of, you're probably not going to get the results you're looking for. You might
mm.
find some relief, but once you go back to eating those foods that are contributing to that, you're going to have that bad bacteria kind of overtake again. And so it's really important to bring that balance back.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, balance in everything is so critical. We talk a lot about that on this podcast. For
Yeah.
your body and your mind and everything, it all comes together. Having that holistic outlook really plays a big part in fixing yourself and finding those long-term solutions.
Have you ever done any of those diets?
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried a lot of different diets. I've done carnivore and keto and we tried juicing for a while and like you said, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I really like carnivore and I do kind of like a carnivore adjacent now. I do mostly animal products, but I do incorporate like fruit and sometimes other vegetables and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting how different diets work better with different people. What's
Yes.
what's your take on that? Why some diets work for certain people but not for others?
Yeah, something we don't realize or pay enough attention to is our genetic makeup is so different from the next person.
Yeah.
And so is our gut microbiome. There are no two gut microbiomes that are the same. What's in your gut is not the same as your kids. They have different exposure. Your spouse has different exposure. And so we forget that the probiotics in your gut are created from the different fruits and vegetables you're eating, the different foods that you're eating, but also the soil you're exposed to. Different things you're exposed to are going to create different bacteria in the gut. This is why people who kind of live off the land have a much more diverse gut microbiome versus people like myself who live in Los Angeles. Their studies have shown that they have far fewer strains in the gut because we just don't have that exposure to farm life, to that dirt and soil like other people do. And so my gut is going to be very different than even my neighbor's gut, right? They're eating different things. This is why you might have, your neighbor or even your spouse, your best friend doing a certain diet, and they're like, oh my God, you got to do this diet. It's amazing. I had great results on it. I've lost weight. I feel amazing. And you try it and you're like, is this the same diet we're talking about? Because I feel terrible on it. I don't feel great. I'm bloated. I'm not even sleeping well anymore. I'm tossing and turning. I'm waking up at 2 a.m. That is why this happens. And we get frustrated. We're like, I don't understand. I tried keto, just like they said in this podcast. I tried carnivore, but I didn't get those results. Well, not only do your genetics play a role in how you respond to different diets, but so does your stress level and your lifestyle. So all of that is going to play a role in your hormones. It's going to play a role in your gut microbiome. People don't realize that when we lead a very stressful life, where when we're constantly under a state of stress, it's going to lower stomach acid. And when we lower
Hmm.
stomach acid, we're not able to properly digest food. So the first time that I tried carnivore, I did not do well on it. In fact, I had the opposite effect than what other people talk about when they talk about carnivore, right? They're like, I feel amazing. Oh my God, carnivore is so great. I've been doing it for such a long time. That was not my experience the first time because I had really low stomach acid. I had an
Mm,
overgrowth of H. pylori, which contributes to low stomach acid. And so I was just eating all of this beef and hard to digest protein, and I didn't have enough stomach acid to digest all of that protein. And so I was feeling fatigued, I was bloated, I had headaches, I was nauseous, I did not feel well on it. And so I didn't realize that I need to fix my gut before I can jump onto these restrictive diets because that's not, sometimes it works the opposite for people. Sometimes they do the restrictive diets and that's what heals them. That wasn't the
mm,
case for me. I needed to heal my gut first in order to do that. After I kind of worked on healing my gut and clearing myself of that H. pylori, when I tried carnivore again, I felt just like everyone talks about. I had so much energy. I was annoying my husband with how much energy I had. I was like, you don't understand. I feel like I had a Red Bull this morning and I haven't. All I'm eating is ribeyes. And he's like, oh my God, I get it. You're so annoying. But it was just this incredible freedom that I felt. I just had so much concentration. I had so much focus and my stomach was flat and I finally felt all of those things that people talk about on carnivore, but you really have to address the gut and the imbalances and increase your stomach acid levels in order to properly digest food, especially animal protein, which is really hard to digest.
yeah. Yeah, my wife, I try to tell her about the carnivore diet and she's tried it. I cook a lot, so she eats a lot of the stuff that I make, but she, can't handle like a lot of the high fat. She doesn't have her
Yeah.
gallbladder and so it just doesn't work for her. She has to, have less fat in each meal and really include more veggies and, it's just really important for people to know that the same diet might not work for everyone just because we're all so different, like you said. And
Yeah, exactly.
how did you address your gut bacteria imbalance?
Yeah, well, there is a protocol that I recommend to clients that I work with to rid them of H. pylori if that is their issue, which most of the time, people that I work with, when we do the GI-MAP stool test, that is usually what I will see is that overgrowth of the H. pylori because it is a fairly common opportunistic bacteria that does tend to overgrow. It's also very sneaky. It kind of burrows into the stomach lining. But sometimes it can burrow in other places as well. It can actually store itself into the gallbladder. So if you are trying to do a protocol on your own without really knowing what you're doing, H. pylori is really smart. It's kind of creepy in a way, but it will sense something that you're taking to kill off that H. pylori if it's not the proper protocol and will burrow itself in different places. It can even burrow itself further into the stomach lining. It can store itself in the gallbladder. And so it's very important that either you fully know what you're doing to address that, or you're working with someone like myself who is giving you the proper protocol to get rid of that H. pylori overgrowth. The analogy that I always give is kind of like the H. pylori is in an anthill, right? And it's covered and you know it's there and it's kind of causing these issues, this disruption in your backyard. You want to get rid of it. When you take things that are not properly, it's not the full protocol. It's like going and kicking that anthill. And so now you have all of these ants that are kind of scurrying out and trying to hide in different places because they know there's danger.
Yeah.
Now they're going to go in places that is harder to find, right? Before you knew they were in the stomach lining, now they might be stored somewhere else. They can even go into the liver. And so now they're hiding somewhere else, which is much, much harder to address. So it's very, very
Whoa.
important that you work with someone who knows what they're doing or work with your doctor or you're doing the proper protocol. So there's different ways of killing H. pylori. There's natural supplements that you can take, which is what I recommend, the protocols that I did on myself and what I recommend. Your doctor might prescribe antibiotics. That's usually what your doctor will recommend. Antibiotics, have their time and place. With H. pylori, if you don't address what allowed them to overgrow in the first place, you're going to take those antibiotics and they're just going to grow right back because antibiotics are kind of like, um, you know, throwing a match into the entire house to kill all the bad guys, but there might be some good guys in there too. You know, it's much harder to get the good guys to come back. It's much easier to have the bad guys come back and kind of overtake that property. I hope that was a good analogy, but it's just when you're killing off everything that's in the gut, it's much easier for that bad bacteria to overpopulate. And so we see that a lot. We see recurring infections often because
Hmm.
someone is going back to their stressful lifestyle or their diet that's full of processed sugars, processed ingredients, inflammatory ingredients, and so that H. pylori is like perfect. This is the perfect environment for me to come and overgrow. The good guys can't hang on. And so it makes it a very favorable environment for them to kind of overgrow. And so I see this often when people kind of want to do things on their own or they take the antibiotic route and don't address their lifestyle. That H. pylori unfortunately does come back and seizes the opportunity.
Yeah. Wow, that's really great to learn. I mean, it's the antibiotics, it's almost like taking like a shotgun approach. Like you're just trying to kill all the bacteria in your gut. And I feel like people really need to be aware and understand that antibiotics, like you said, do have a time and place, but they should really be considerate when they take them and not just jump right into them because they are so, damaging to the gut, to the good and the bad bacterias. So
Yeah,
it's
another analogy I love to give is the garden and the opportunistic bacteria are like the weeds in the garden that are kind of
mm,
overtaking. So taking an antibiotic is kind of like burning your garden down to kill off all those weeds. What's going to grow back first? Is it the flowers and the tomato plants? No, it's the weeds that are going to grow back
yeah.
first. So it's the same thing that goes on in your gut. You have to be very
Hmm.
careful how you repopulate the gut with kind of the supplements that you've taken or the antibiotics that you've taken.
Definitely. Is fasting part of that protocol?
Yeah, I love fasting. Fasting is such a great free tool for people to use. I know there are people who have their opinions on fasting and I always say that fasting has a time and a place. It's not for everyone at all times. I
Mm,
never give general guidelines for everyone because just like we talked about a few minutes ago, everyone has a different genetic makeup, a different gut microbiome, a different hormonal level in certain things. Some people have imbalances, some people have thyroid dysfunction or slow thyroid. And so sometimes fasting can create more stress in the body. If someone already has high cortisol, fasting is a stress on the body. And so it can increase cortisol even further and lead to a further imbalance. And so it's not for everyone at all times. You do have to kind of address what might be going on in your body. But if you don't have those things going on, you know, you've tested. I always say test, don't guess. Don't say, I don't think I'm stressed out. I think I can do this fast. You know, I think I'm okay. We always say that. You know, I don't think this is a big deal. Spend that money on that test. We're so quick to throw money out at supplements and this next new fad and this and that, whatever. But when it comes to testing, people are so hesitant. Oh, I don't know if I want to spend that money on that test. Test to know exactly what's going on in your body. And if you don't have, you're not estrogen dominant, you don't have high cortisol, you don't have any of those things, fasting can be a great way to kind of reset your digestive system. It gives your digestive system a nice break. It's kind of like you working all day, same as your digestive system, just snacking all day, having coffee with some creamer in the morning, you're having a late night snack, you're going to work, and then your boss calls you and says, hey, we actually need you to come back at 2 a.m. You know, we kind of woke up, we don't feel good. We want to have like maybe I don't know, some honey with tea to go back to sleep. And you're like, okay, your digestive system is working again. Then you're up at 7 a.m. getting the kids ready for school. You're having your coffee. You put some coffee mate in there or French vanilla creamer or whatever it is, you're overworking again, it's going to start shutting down. You're going to start seeing it shut down after a while. So, um, pay attention to how much rest you give your digestive system because it's very important. The simplest fast you can do is try not to eat anything 3 to 5 hours before bedtime. I always give people that as an easy step one.
Hmm.
Um, People tend to want to go to an extreme. Hey, I heard about this fast. Should I be doing an extended fast? Should I be doing I heard a 5-day water fast is amazing. I'm like, yeah, it is, but you've never fasted before.
You
So
got to work up to
you
it.
got to work up to it. We're not doing a 5-day fast right now. So the basic step one you can do, don't eat anything 5 hours before you're going to bed, or at least 3 hours before you're going to bed. You're going to bed at 10 p.m. Great. Stop eating by 7 o'clock. If you can do by 5 o'clock, even better. Start that as your step one, and you can
Hmm.
always build from there. You can always say, okay, now I'm doing, 16 hours fasted or 18 hours, and then you can kind of go into however long of a fast your goal is. But yeah, fasting, that's people get so excited about hearing these results and they're like, "Hey, have you heard about this fast?" I'm like, "Yes, I have, but you're not ready for that. I don't think you
Right.
should be doing that right now." Another thing I always tell people is that you should feel amazing when you're in a fasted state. I always do. If
Yeah.
you feeling lethargic, you feel dizzy, you feel fatigued, you're fasting too long for your body at that time. You need to kind of scale it back a little bit and build up those steps. Do you
Hmm.
do intermittent fasting or longer fasts?
Yeah, yeah, I love fasting. I did intermittent fasting for a few years to help me lose a lot of weight. And still to this day, about once a week, I'll do a 16-hour fast just to help clear out my gut, and I feel great on it. But it's
Yeah,
scary. Like you said, you got to work up to it. I think the advice of just starting out with like a 12-hour fast, like not eating after dinner, and then just breaking your fast with breakfast, that's why it's called breakfast, because you're breaking your
yeah,
fast. And I was talking to my niece the other day, and she's like, I want to lose weight for my trip to Spain, and I'm doing a 24-hour fast. And I'm like, "What? Like, you don't fast? What do you mean you're doing a 24-hour
yeah,
fast? That's like too long. Like, you gotta like take it easy if you're doing a long fast like that. You gotta make sure you're getting your electrolytes." And she like had no idea. And she had just heard
yeah,
it, I think, like online, and she just did it. And so many people, I think, are in that boat, and they need to take it slow, like you said, start out with like a 12-hour fast and then move on to, 16 hours and kind of build up to it, because there's just
yeah.
so many benefits. I mean, the gut stem cells that are released after, I think, what is it, 16 hours, or
Yeah.
it's just incredible the benefits you can get. But like you said, it's not for everybody, and people should take it slow and be careful.
Yeah, and some people are on medications they need to take at certain hours, and so they can't do a longer fast. All of that is okay. I think we see these videos on social media, and it's usually short clips because now everything is like a quick reel, 90 seconds or less, and you're not getting the full education on what you should be properly doing or understanding why someone would do a 24-hour fast or why someone would do this. I usually try to keep my videos and even steps that I give very basic. I can go into more detailed steps, but I think people overall are generally overwhelmed and there's so much information. And so I'll even have friends saying, "Hey, I'm trying to buy everything organic, but I saw this reel that said I should be drinking A2 milk. And so should I dump the milk that I just bought out? I bought organic grass-fed milk, but this person said it should be A2 milk." And it's little things like that where they feel overwhelmed.
Hmm.
And eventually they're going to say, "You know what? This is too much. I'm just going to go back to eating my blueberry muffin with my coffee mate creamer because I don't know what else to do. I'm trying to do the right things, but this person said drink this and this person said drink that." So I always try to give very simple kind of basic guidelines because I never want to overwhelm anyone. I
Hmm.
felt overwhelmed when I was first starting out. I was trying to do all these things and I was feeling worse and worse no matter how restrictive I was. And so I never want to lead anyone down that path. And so I try to kind of really give them like, listen, this is a basic first step. Just stop eating 5 hours before bed. Don't worry about keto. Don't worry about fasting or, a carnivore or these other things. Let's just do that as step one. Once you got that down, step two, sure, we can do keto, we can do carnivore, whatever you're ready for. We can do more of a paleo, whatever the best approach is for you. But let's kind of go in steps. We don't want to jump into this crazy fast, but that only goes so far. I think people love doing the extremes. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I try to give the advice of people taking small steps over time, and that adds up to big changes. It didn't,
yeah,
whatever you're dealing with didn't happen overnight, and it takes time to get better. And just jumping all in, doing crazy fast, doing crazy diets, all those different things, it's not helpful. It's going to overwhelm you and might make things
yeah,
worse. So I
yeah,
wanted
I
to
agree. Uh-huh.
want to talk about the autoimmune system a little bit and how autoimmune disease, can come from having an unhealthy gut. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, we're seeing so many things. It's kind of like, we're just being shot in different directions. Kind of reminds me of those Super Soaker commercials from the 90s, where, they came out of nowhere and they all had kind of water guns. Kind of
Right.
feels like that a little bit right now because we're getting exposed to toxins from our environment. Our soils are depleted. And so the probiotics that we used to get, the bacteria, the minerals from our soils that we used to get, we're not really getting anymore. And so we're exposed to these chemical killers like the glyphosate, the herbicides, the pesticides. And even if you're not using it, your neighbor is using it. Even if your neighbor's not using it, your city's probably using it. And so you're getting remnants of it into your yard. You're being exposed to it. And then we have the environment, and then we have even our own food we're consuming that we're constantly being tricked into consuming things that we think are healthy. And then lo and behold, someone's like, hey, were you eating that you thought was healthy? We actually found out that it's loaded with lead and arsenic. And you're like, oh my God, I've been eating this and feeding it to my kids. And so, really, we're seeing just this overexposure to these toxins, and the body is slowly, slowly shutting down. And when that happens, then someone gets diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. And they're like, what do you mean I have PCOS? What do you mean I have fatty liver? We're seeing an increase in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and people are getting diagnosed younger and younger. And I have a friend who was diagnosed with that, and she said, I don't get it. Why am I diagnosed with that? I don't really consume alcohol, maybe, once every few months if I go with my husband or something, but nothing crazy. I don't get it. And I said, it's actually a sugar issue and a toxin issue and an inflammatory seed oil issue. And she said, what? And these are words that she's never really heard before. She's like, what are seed oils? And I said, well, there are
Let me
these,
tell you.
let me tell you. Let me pull up the 8 seed oil video for you.
Hmm.
But people have no idea how damaging seed oils are and how they contribute to things like clogging up the arteries. Um, your arteries being clogged is a too much sugar issue. It's not a too much salt issue, where salt definitely has its place and we don't want to be over consuming salt. Usually it's because someone has an overconsumption of seed oils, inflammatory, processed ingredients, and just too much sugar in the body. And so that's leading to a plaque buildup. And so we're seeing a rise of these autoimmune disorders. It seems like it's becoming more and more common where if someone doesn't have an autoimmune disorder, it's almost, rare to see that. I have so many friends who have endometriosis, PCOS, fatty liver disease, H. pylori. Actually, my nurse friend, she had so many symptoms. Her doctor kept telling her it was fine. She's a nurse herself, so there's only so much that I could say. I finally pushed her to get a GMAP stool test, and she said, "Oh my God, all of my issues were because I had an overgrowth of H. pylori." And I said, "Yeah, I'm not surprised."
Yeah.
And once she cleared that out, she texted me and she said, "Alina, it's a night and day difference in how I feel. I cannot believe the things that I was feeling." She had symptoms like feeling like something was stuck in her esophagus at all times.
Oh,
She,
wow.
yeah. And so there can be symptoms that you would never think are attributed to bacteria or your gut because we think of our gut, we think of our stomach.
Mm-hmm.
But your body has to get rid of that in some way, right? It has to talk to you. So sometimes it gives you a rash, sometimes it gives you some sort of feeling, sometimes it gives you heartburn, but it talks to you in some way, and it's telling you, hey, the check engine light is on, pay attention
Right.
to me, something you need to address.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, unfortunately, we are seeing an increase of these autoimmune disorders and unfortunately cancers. My mother-in-law and I were talking about that, and she said it seems almost everyone you talk to right now is either they have cancer or their family member has cancer or someone really close to them has cancer. And she said it's becoming so scary. And I said, yeah, it really is. And it's just, not to make light of it, but it's kind of like that Super Soaker commercial where we're just being blasted all around us with all of these toxins, and we can only escape so much. And so it's just unfolding as these diseases and cancers and autoimmune disorders and conditions and things that we're seeing in people younger and younger. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really scary. And so I'm so happy to be on this podcast. I'm so happy for you and I to be spreading the awareness of paying attention to your gut, paying attention to, hey, what was that thing your doctor said is very common, IBS? Yeah, maybe let's talk about that. Maybe let's look into that. Maybe let's see what that is before it manifests itself into something a lot more serious, because that is much harder to come back from.
Yeah. Before they put you on medication, start
Yeah.
addressing the other issues. And it's yeah, something else I wanted to mention. You talked about, clogged arteries. It's really incredible how many people think that eating too much cholesterol is clogging the
Yeah.
arteries, when in reality it's the inflammation that's causing the damage, and then your body is sending the cholesterol to repair it. And it's not the cause of it. It's really a symptom of what's going on in a bigger picture.
Yeah. Exactly. So when LDL is increased, it's a sign that there's some sort of inflammation going on in the body. And most people don't realize that. They're like, oh, it's because I'm eating red meat or I'm, having too much salt in my food, or I don't know, these things, these emails that we get of this is what's going on. And like, that's not what's going on. When your LDL is increasing like that, it's an inflammatory response to something else that's going on in the body, but people don't know that. And so they go and synthetically lower their LDL, right? And we've seen that studies show people who lower their LDL cholesterol by going on some sort of medication are more likely to die of a heart attack. Why is that? When it was the high LDL that was supposed to prevent you from having a heart attack? Well, because they never addressed what was causing that damage in the first place. They never addressed what was causing that inflammatory response. And it's the sugars, the processed ingredients, the seed oils.
Hmm.
Another basic tip that I always give people is when you look at the ingredients and you don't know what it is, your body also doesn't know what it is.
Right.
If you're like, I'm not sure what this is, but I'm going to consume it anyway, it's going to cause inflammation in the body because your body does not know how to process it. It doesn't know how to digest. And so it's using all of its resources to do that, causing inflammation and kind of slowing down the functions of other organs as well. And so it's really important when you look at the ingredients that you know what it is, because if you know what it is, your body knows what it is, it'll break it down, it'll digest it properly. So it's not the red meat that's causing all of that. Where, we've been eating grass-fed beef for generations, and that's not what's causing any of those issues.
Yeah, definitely. Some general advice I give to people is just stick with whole foods. I mean, you really can't go wrong. Like you said, if you
Yeah,
can't pronounce a name of an ingredient, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
yeah. Um what are some healthy fats that people can replace those seed oils with?
I use avocado oil to cook with.
Mm,
You want to look at avocado oil, the ingredients. Some of it is cut with canola oil because it is a very inexpensive product to produce. That's why canola oil is so mass marketed. It's touted as a heart healthy oil. I cringe when I say that because we both
dairy.
know that it's not.
Hmm.
But sometimes avocado oil or even olive oil can be cut with canola oil. So just make sure that It's just pure avocado or olive oil. That's what I normally use to cook with. I'll use either ghee or grass-fed butter or avocado oil or coconut oil. And the
Hmm.
coconut oil you always want to make sure is organic. You want to make sure it's unrefined as well. And those are kind of the ones that I stick to. And the olive oil, organic olive oil is so rich in polyphenols, which your body really needs because
Oh
it
yeah.
adds as an antioxidant in the body. So like that super soaker example that I was giving, those are all things that are going to cause oxidation in the body, kind of like that apple that's starting to brown and go rotten. Same thing that's
Mm,
happening. You want to consume a lot of polyphenols because they act as antioxidants, which help kind of slow down or even mitigate that response, that oxidation response.
yeah. Yeah, I like to cook with tallow a lot, beef
Yeah,
tallow and butter too. But something that's so interesting is that people don't realize the difference between margarine and butter. They don't
yeah,
understand that margarine is just, processed seed oils, and it's completely different to butter, and it's horrible for you.
yeah.
It's really a
Yeah,
shame.
I think because we were ashamed so much, especially in the 90s, there was this big push against fat and everything was fat free. I think that really stuck with people. And
Yeah.
so have a hard time kind of unlearning all of that. And they're like, I can't have butter, it's so fatty. I can't have, beef, it's so fatty. And I'm like, what are you cooking with? Soybean oil? That's terrible for you. That's not, you know,
Yikes.
but I think because there was that big push, people really got used to that. And I
Hmm.
remember we were buying everything fat free in the 90s. We fell into that. We thought that fat was really what was causing all of these issues. I don't know if you did as well, but I remember we were buying everything fat free. Um, and it really wasn't until the study started coming out that oh, it's not the fat that's causing that. The stuff we've been eating for generations, oh yeah, it's not that. It's the stuff we just invented. We don't want to let you
Hmm.
guys know. So, but there are still people who didn't get that memo and they're still kind of eating that way. And so, again, I try not to overwhelm people. I give that general advice of, listen, look on the back, look at the ingredients. Do you know where
Hmm.
that comes from? Do you guys know? Okay, put it back. Grass-fed butter, I know exactly what that is. That's what I'm going to feed my family. And so it's sometimes just as simple like that. We're always looking for these complex answers, right? I get these questions so much. What should I take? What supplements should I be on? Do you recommend this? Have you heard of that? Have you heard of this supplement? What about that? And I tell them, listen, but you're eating horribly. Why are you worried about supplements? Go back to the basics, eat real food. And then we can talk about supplements. They have a time and place, right? I take supplements myself, but let's go back to the basics. Stop buying special K bars because you think they're healthy. Let's eat some real food. And then, sure, we can talk about step two, supplements or whatever it is. But really, it's just going back to those basics. Eat real food, get sunlight, do some grounding, connect with nature, drink water, and get some exercise in, even light exercise like walking. Those are kind of like the five foundational steps. Get that in, and then we can talk about more complex things into kind of biohacking your health or, other terms that we're hearing. But we're let's not go to that extreme yet when you're still kind of eating, using canola oil to cook. There's a lot of step ones we need to address first.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no magic pill that you can take. You really gotta look at it from
Yeah,
the
I
big
wish there
picture
was.
and just take care of yourself, and it's like we all know it, but we don't want to admit it. It's
Yeah.
really important to go back and, you mentioned stress is really a big factor on gut health and overall health as well. How do you find work-life balance as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, it's actually much easier for me now that I have healed my gut, because a lot of people don't realize how much their fatigue is related to their gut microbiome. And
Mm.
so when we have that imbalance, then we are going to have heightened senses of anxiety, feelings of depression, just that worrying feeling, being stressed all the time. There are key bacteria that you could be missing, like the lactobacillus family, the bifidobacterium family. when we're missing those key strains, we've seen people do tend to have more anxiety, they have more depression, they just feel kind of lethargic throughout the day. And so I struggled with a lot of that, much less so now that I've addressed my gut. But it also, when you have that overgrowth of bacteria like H. pylori, actually going to not allow your body to absorb things like B vitamins, which gives you a lot of energy. It's also going to not allow your body to absorb iron. And so a common thing I'll see is someone will say, my doctor said I'm anemic, that's what I was told my entire life. I was anemic, my mom was anemic. I didn't know until I had to find out on my own that H. pylori overgrowth will lead to someone being anemic, and you'll have low zinc levels, you'll have low B12 levels, low iron stores. And so, of course, you're fatigued and tired because no matter how much red meat or things you're eating, this bacteria is not allowing your body to absorb any of that. You're not getting any of those nutrients or those vitamins. And so, addressing your gut is really, really important. I also notice, if I do go out with girlfriends and we do have a dessert together or we have a cocktail or whatever it is, the next day I find myself to be a lot more irritable. I find myself to be a little bit more short with my kids. And it's because I've just fed that bad bacteria, right? I've done all these things and now it's contributing to how I respond to my family. But we don't always make that connection. We just think, I woke up the next day, I'm just kind of, tired, I didn't sleep well, and all of those things contribute as well, sure. But really that work-life balance is much easier to balance once you have addressed your gut microbiome and you get that into balance. The other things are much easier. That being said, I have two boys, so I do find myself stressed with them, just, with all of their chaos and their wrestling and breaking things and all of the things that goes on over there. But not in the ways that it was before, not how I found myself being irritable and short and just so much anxiety I struggled with and so much depression that I didn't realize kind of went away when I addressed my gut issues. And so
Hmm.
it's just been great kind of learning more about myself, the gut, and now I can help others with that as well.
It's fantastic. Is there one question that you people would ask you more about gut health?
I think a big misconception that people get, this happens so much in person. Someone asks me, "What do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I'm a gut nutritionist." And they always point to like their belly or something, and they say, "Oh, as you can tell, I have so many gut issues." And that's not really what it is. You might be fit, but you might be bloated all the time. We even see this in bodybuilders. They have lean muscle mass, they're doing everything right, so to speak, but they're bloated or they're fatigued. I've actually worked with bodybuilders who have mentioned things like that. Like I look amazing on the outside, but I don't feel well, or I'm constantly bloated,
Mm.
or I always have diarrhea or whatever it is. So when people point to, like a big belly or something, they're like, "Oh yeah, as you can tell, I have gut issues." I'm like, that's not really what gut issues is it can be, but it's so much more than that. All of
Yeah.
these things that you have, all these symptoms, these rashes, these headaches, poor sleep, all of these things are gut issues. Your low iron, your anxiety, your depression, your weakened immune system, struggle going between constipation and diarrhea, having IBS, all of these things are gut issues. So it's not, someone having a big belly or a small belly or a flat stomach. That's not really doesn't really have that correlation to gut health like people think that it does.
Hmm. Yeah. That's crazy. People have so many misconceptions. It's
Yeah.
really looking at that big picture and taking everything into account to get your health in order.
Yeah, it's always surprising how okay people are with being on a medication or taking something for the rest of their life. I've talked to people who say, "Oh, I have heartburn almost every single day. I always carry Tums with me. I carry it in my car, I carry it in my purse." And I look at them like, you never wanted to address why you have so much heartburn? I think that we just have normalized taking even an over-the-counter medication or aid so much that people don't think anything of it. They just, always keep an Advil in their car because they're prone to headaches, or they always
Yeah.
keep, Tums, like they said, or whatever it is. And it's surprising that we've just kind of normalize things so much. And I always say we've romanticized caffeine culture so much and this hustle culture. And, we kind of have talked about how cool it is to always be hustling hard and working hard and grinding and all of these things. There's these reels on it, there's this social media following on it. But we don't realize what a toll that's taking on your body when you're not sleeping well. That is going to affect your gut microbiome. It's going to affect your hormones, your stress level will catch up to you. When you are constantly having coffee and your body's not able to wake up on its own, you wake up, you're tired, you need a coffee, and then you find yourself needing a coffee a little bit later, you're crashing that afternoon crash, you need a coffee again to get you going. These are signs there's some sort of imbalance going on in the body because you should not need a stimulant like coffee to keep going throughout the day. I drink coffee because I love it, but I did have a point, about 10 years ago, I would say, where I was drinking several coffees a day, like maybe 3, 4 coffees a day. And my husband said, "What are you doing? You're drinking 4 coffees a day." And I was like, "It's not a big deal. Everyone drinks coffee." I didn't think it was a problem until I really started going down this path of understanding the central nervous system, understanding the gut microbiome, and understanding when we need that stimulant all the time, what it can lead to. And unfortunately, we're seeing kids much younger drinking coffee all the time now, right? Like my
Yeah.
nieces, they and their friends are always getting coffee. They're always getting not even Starbucks. There's these trendy coffee shops that have become they're Instagrammable, right? So everyone wants to go there
Hmm.
and get a coffee and take that photo. And I look at them like, you guys are 14, 15 years old. Why are you drinking coffee? Why is this so normalized? And we're not going to understand what it's doing to them until their body starts crashing later, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because they're just overstimulating their central nervous system at such a young age. And it's eventually it's going to catch up to them, and it's sad, but that's just kind of what's been happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, those coffees that people get are just full of sugar. There's so
Yeah.
much sugar, and even those seed oils in those creamers, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
like you were saying, people carry on Tums with them all the time or Advil, and it's like you have that heartburn not because you have a deficiency in Tums, it's because of what you're eating and what you're doing. And
Yeah.
people to make that connection is such a game changer to change their health and take control. It's really important. So, what's Go Happy Belly?
Yeah, so I, realized that everything starts in the gut. And but I didn't want to call my company gut something. It just didn't sound very fun. So I just thought belly is just a lot more fun. Especially since I have kids, I try to explain to them about the gut all the time. And so I thought, what's something that will resonate with kids and adults? And so I thought of belly, happy belly, happy life. That was taken. So I said, what can I put in front of it? And I went with, let's go, happy belly. We
Hmm.
need happy belly. And so that's kind of how it came about. But really, I talk to my kids all the time about that as well, just how important that happy belly is. Because when you have that happy belly, it's going to translate into you just having that happy focus level, that happy concentration level, that happy life, that happy energy. And so it just is related to so many things that we don't realize it is.
Awesome. And so you work with people one on one to help them with their gut issues?
Yeah, I do. I work with people one-on-one. And that's really my focus. I've thought about doing group practices, but because I don't want to just give general guidelines to people, I
Yeah.
really like to test their gut and see what's going on. Because if we don't do that, I mean, it's kind of like being blindfolded with a piñata and you're trying to hit it, you're trying to do the diets. You're like, I heard about creatine, will that help? I heard about this supplement, will that help? And you're trying to hit it, you're going to miss most of the time. You're going to be left feeling frustrated, overwhelmed. I work with people who tell me I worked with someone before. I spent thousands of dollars. They didn't do anything to help me. And I asked them, did they test you? And they say no. Or we did, they did like some sort of different test, but never a stool test. And so I always make sure to do that stool test to see kind of what's going on in you individually. From there, we can address it. It's not always H. pylori. It can be something else, but I
Yeah.
want to see what's going on with you so I can address it for you so that you're not just left feeling overwhelmed and, throwing a bunch of supplements and money at things that are not going to help you because that's not your problem.
Yeah, I think that's really important to get that one-on-one, that specific help and figure out what's going on with you, not just try to take other supplements and try to figure it out on your own, really do the
Yeah.
science and do the homework and figure it out. So if people are interested in working with you, how can they get a hold of you?
My website is gohappybelly.com, and that's the same through social media. Instagram, I would say I'm the most on Instagram, Go Happy Belly on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, anything, TikTok, but I would say Instagram is probably the easiest place to find me. They can also book a free call with me on my website as well. So if you go to gohappybelly.com or you go to gohappybellyfreecall.com, you can just book a free call with me. We'll talk one-on-one just like this, and we'll kind of figure out what the next steps are. But that's really my passion, is working with people one-on-one to kind of figure out what's going on.
Incredible. I love it. So I like to end the show with a segment called the final dose. And how it works is I'll spin a wheel and it'll select the word or phrase at random. And then
Okay.
you share a story or first thought that comes to mind. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm gonna spin the wheel here. I used to share the screen, but there was a little lag. So I'm gonna just spin it and then I'll read off what the word or phrase is.
Okay.
Let's see. Challenged wisdom.
Challenge. So it's two words, challenge wins wisdom.
Yeah. So is there a time where your wisdom was challenged or a story about that you'd like to share?
I would say on Monday on the webinar that you were on, I would say my wisdom was challenged. For for our listeners, we were supposed to do a webinar with a main host, and unfortunately, there was an emergency that he had to tend to, and so kind of within a few minutes before us going live, he asked me if I could lead the webinar, which I was unprepared to do, and so I came on. And there were comments that most of the comments were positive, but there were a few that challenged my wisdom, and said
Mm-mm.
things like, she's not even a doctor, or she, doesn't have the credentials. Why am I listening to this? And
Wow.
it's always, I think, hurtful to see. And we pay so much attention to those negative comments. It was almost like I couldn't really focus on the positive comments that were coming through because those negative ones just stood out so loudly to me. And it's sad that we do this to ourselves, but we just do. And so I saw those and it just was, I felt so emotional and vulnerable and um I was really challenged to keep going, but I did. I focused on the people who did need my help. I focused on the people that I was there for. And so I just finished the presentation and did the best that I could. And then, I also told myself, if that person is not there with me on that live Zoom, if not, they're not in the arena with me, it is so easy to sit back in the stands with your popcorn and criticize how the person in the arena, what they're doing wrong, right? You're throwing
Mhm.
popcorn, you're like, oh, they're doing this wrong, they're doing that wrong, while you're in the comfort of your own seat. And so I told myself, you know what, if the person is not in the arena with me and is taking that head on with me, I'm not going to allow someone in the stands to overpower me like that again, to drown out kind of my own inner voice. And so it was a really good lesson for me, but that was definitely a time when someone challenged my wisdom.
Definitely. Yeah, Alina, you knocked it out of the park on Monday. That was a
Thank you.
fantastic last minute presentation that you didn't have any time to prep for, and it was really great. You shared a lot of really incredible knowledge and
Thank
I
you.
I found a lot of value in it, even though I know so much and I talked to so many people. It was great. So,
Thank you.
definitely don't read the comments. And you did fantastic. So
I
thank you so
appreciate
much for sharing your time with us and helping me cut through the bullshit today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was such an important and fun conversation with you, but a really important one to get that awareness out there. So I was so pleased to have this opportunity. Thank you.